Dear residents of Chesterfield County, South Carolina. Hello, my name is Gary M. Moore. It has come to my attention that the posting of proof of my legal conviction has evoked an emotional response, counterproductive to the true intent of said post. It appears that in your haste to persecute me, a man you no longer know, you missed the fact that the true intent of myself and those whom share this is to protect you and your family. Seeing as how I've nearly served this unconstitutional conviction to its completion, and how this in no way will change the fact that I will be home soon, irregardless of how much you attempt to muddy the waters. I pray for the sake of you and yours that you are able to forego any slight, insult, or abuse I've bestowed upon you and accept my most sincere apology. I pray that you will set aside all the pent-up anger, emotions, and bitterness I've caused you and see reason, not for me, but for yourselves, so that you nor anyone you love ever suffers the constitutional deprivations I've suffered at the hands of your elected officials. I pray that each and every one of you will read this post to completion. Upon completion, take from it what you will. Do with it as you may. But never forget that I cared enough for each and every one of you, despite how you may feel about the man I was 10 years ago, to warn you about those you so blindly trust to do your will and to protect your constitutional rights through due process of law. This will be my only public statement until I am released, at which point I will pursue the abuses upon myself by all those listed herein on any and every forum available until fruition. I ask that you keep an open mind and confirm any doubt you may have by making findings of facts which are contained in the evidence presented by the state of South Carolina. You may also obtain your own copies through the Chesterfield County Clerk of Court through the Freedom of Information Act. I respectfully welcome any of you to disprove my claims. My only request is that you support any claim you make with the evidence and transcripts available to you, as I have. For those of you whom see reason based upon the evidence presented to you, I ask that you present them to the proper authorities, media, etc., so that no one else ever has to suffer as I have at the hands of your publicly elected corrupt officials or their appointees. First and foremost, in response to all of your initial posts, I say this. For those of you whom support the man spilling his heart to you, I thank you. I do humbly request that no further social debate be held on my behalf or in my defense. I pray that you will view their posts as I do. View them as proof of how much I've grown these past 10 years and how far I've come. For those of you whom do not support me because of some slight, wrong, or abuse I bestowed upon you 10 or more years ago, I pray that you will accept my most sincere apology here before the entire world. I pray for all of you daily. I pray that you will stop allowing the actions of a damaged alcoholic evoke a bitterness in you that denies you the true happiness each of you deserve. To those of you I don't know or whom I've never offended, as well as those whom have been lied to by persons named herein, whom continually to make uninformed posts in light of irrefutable proof to the contrary, I quote the Proverbs. Even a fool is considered wise when he keeps quiet. I hope all of you may find peace in the words thus far and recognize all those that follow for what they are, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. For the record, I do not dispute the fact that I, Gary Moore, was an alcoholic and royal prick to some of you. Yes, I could have been a better parent, a better spouse, a better family member, a better man all around, but who couldn't? There are so many things I regret, so many times wasted. Like many of you, I allowed bitterness and hate to fuel the fires that drove me to work day and night. My only intentions was to prove everyone wrong and to elevate the lives of my sons, to a level beyond the control of Chesterfield's social elite. I continuously tried to balance my character flaws with public service, as you can read in my sentence report. As every night I tried to drown my wants, my fears, and failings in alcohol. Looking back now, I realized I had everything a man could want: house, land, transportation, a job, a beautiful family, but was blinded by the rage that fueled the fires by which I obtained all of the above. Jesus said, "For what good is it for a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" For those of you who knew me and are actually qualified to speak on my character 10 years ago, I'm sure you will agree that is the most accurate assessment of myself ever made. Having said that, character deficiency is not a violation of any law in this great union we call the United States of America. My actions, of which I am not proud, did not violate one law or warrant the deprivation of my constitutional rights or all the abuses bestowed upon myself by Chesterfield County, which are as follows. Please note that I have to quote from memory, so dates may need to be confirmed. First, Officer Kearns of the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Department did have knowledge of death threats made against myself by Charles Wallace, but did not report. Lieutenant Vince Vaughn did have knowledge of death threats made by Charles Wallace, but did nothing. Investigator Greg Burns had knowledge of death threats and did nothing. Chesterfield Magistrate's Office had proof of death threats, denied restraining order. At Hayden Magistrate's Court for axe handle incident, Charles Wallace did attempt to assault me again. Charles Wallace did state to Judge Falkenberry and Officer Hutchinson of the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Department that he would catch me at a store and kill me. He was detained for several hours, yet no charges were filed by Falkenberry or Officer Hutchinson. Falkenberry denied me a restraining order, at which point I received notice of being a victim by the South Carolina Victims Advocacy and took work outside of Chesterfield County to allow situations to cool in light of the complete refusal of protection by Chesterfield County. Please note, at the time of the McCormick incident, I was the victim of the victim, Charles Wallace, per the South Carolina Victims Advocate. Charles Wallace should have been arrested for being within 500 feet of myself. More than a year later, Charles Wallace did catch me at a store and tried to kill me as he promised so many officials. Charles Wallace did sneak up behind me and sucker punch me in the head before my eyes could adjust to the contrast of light. When I tried to push past him, he did grab me by my hair and pull me to the ground. Stephen Hooks did assist Charles Wallace by choking me, at which point I stabbed Charles Wallace as I was trying to get outside to call the law. Stephen Hooks did get cut trying to continue the fight. Upon my immediate exit, I did call the law. I was arrested by Officer Hutchinson. The Officer Charles had told at Magistrate's office he was going to catch me at the store and kill me. I did relinquish a clean blade to Officer Hutchinson, whom along with Investigator Perry and Investigator Burns, placed water and blood on my knife. Immediately following, Investigator Burns retained the store video on his iPhone, which he altered using training he received in Georgia the month of the axe handle incident. Approximately 9 months later, I appeared in front of the Honorable Judge Henderson, who used the forged fabricated video as a basis to deny me immunity from prosecution. During the immunity hearing, Charles Wallace did admit to committing every element of attempted murder. Judge Henderson did deny immunity without making one findings of facts as required by law. Every statement made by myself can be confirmed by enhanced Melissa Griffin 911 audio submitted at PCR. Audio proves that Melissa Griffin did commit perjury. Audio proves Stephen Hooks did commit perjury. Charles Wallace also committed perjury. My case was remanded for trial approximately 1 month later. The Honorable Paul Burks did allow my legal trial to proceed despite not requiring or receiving the findings of facts from the immunity court to warrant said trial. At trial, Charles Wallace did commit perjury in addition to admitting to every element of attempted murder. Melissa Griffin committed perjury again. Stephen Hooks did the same. Solicitor Lee presented a fabricated video, video number 4, not submitted to defense and discovery, an altered shirt, an altered blade. Investigator Perry committed perjury. Investigator Burns committed perjury, narrating videos 1, 2, 3, and 4. Upon seeing the fabricated video not given in discovery, I did immediately and emphatically show my ass. I pointed out to Judge Burke that video with number 4 was altered. I called Solicitor Lee a liar and accused her of misconduct for presenting an altered video not submitted during discovery. Judge Burke had Hattie Gordon remove this incident from transcript, but it was later confirmed at PCR by Solicitor Lee and Larry Knox, Esquire. The omission of this event is one of many prejudicial oversights by Ms. Gordon. Judge Burke did erroneously charge the jury twice, confusing them completely into a conviction upon myself. During my pre-sentence investigation, Sheriff Lee did alter the police report to make cases where I was victim to appear as the culprit. During sentencing, 2 years was knocked off my sentence for all my community service with DJJ, AMI Kids, as well as the probation and parole department. Upon my conviction, the Chesterfield County Clerk's Office lost the 4th altered video that was not submitted during discovery or to the appellate court upon transfer of my case, despite being testified to extensively during trial by Investigator Greg Burns. On appeal, my case was affirmed, despite no findings of fact being submitted by Judge Henderson. To this day, the courts refuse to acknowledge no findings of facts never being made to warrant my conviction, despite there being absolutely no findings of fact in or on record at PCR. My case was affirmed despite the overwhelming exculpatory evidence presented, which were omitted by Solicitor Lee at trial. In addition, Solicitor Lee did affirm the existence of the 4th fabricated video that was not submitted during discovery, during transfer to the appellate court, or upon request by PCR attorney Dane Phillips, from which a 59E hearing was convened. Judge Holt once again denied relief despite having no findings of facts, despite clear, irrefutable evidence of my innocence. Finally, out of money, a writ of certiorari was filed by Robert Dudek. Once again, the appellate court refused to acknowledge the lack of findings of facts to warrant the conviction, despite no findings of facts on or in the record. However, writ of cert was granted for the erroneous jury charge on attempted murder. That is the most brief summation of facts I can offer you. I'm sure most of you had no idea exactly what was going on with me in those days prior to this conviction, but now you know. I hope you'll agree that they contributed considerably to my drinking and lapse of decency. I challenge each and every one of you whom are reading these final words to open your eyes. Be aware, very aware. Do what is right, not for the wreck that entered the Department of Corrections 10 years ago, but for the man that stands humbly before you today, putting himself on the line and under the gun of a clearly corrupt group of dangerously placed people to make you aware so that you and yours do not lose their life and liberty without the due process of law. Our forefathers crossed an ocean and fought to the death to give us. With all my love and truest of best intentions, respectfully, Gary M. Moore.